First, let's change width of our input fields. I believe that our form will be prettier if we have wider fields, so for our first input field or name field, let's define class HTML attribute. And from styles, let's take this width 30 class. Basically, this class will set 30% of width for complete div to an HTML element. In our case, we'll use this one for our input field, so let's paste it here. And now we can copy complete class and let's apply it on other input elements. Okay, we will skip gender because gender are radio input fields, so and this is gonna be the last one. Okay, so let's save our changes. And let's go back in our web browser. Take a look on our form, and voila! Now we have our wider input fields for our contact form. Now let's change appearance of our send and reset button. Inside of our text editor, we need to apply class HTML attribute, and I already prepared two classes. With button yellow class, we'll change background color for our button. It's going to be yellow. We'll remove border. This is color for our text. It is gray. And we'll use transition effect. For that one, we'll use this hover class that will also change background color, remove border, set color for text, and we'll add some additional padding. So let's copy this class. For our send button, let's define class HTML attribute, and let's paste our class here. So now we can copy this class, and let's apply the same one for our reset button. So now we can save our changes, and let's refresh our web page, and here it is. Now we have our send and reset button with CSS class that we have applied on it. So anytime when we hover on our buttons, we will get that cool hover effect that we set with this hover class. So we have that cool hover effect. Next thing that we can do for our form. Currently, we don't have any restrictions for our form. So if user try to submit HTML form without entering any data, he or she will do that successfully. So let's apply some restriction attributes on our form. For our first input field, let's define required HTML attribute. So let's save this and let's refresh our page. So now when we try to submit form, we'll get validation error that we need to fill out this field. So only when user enters some value, he or she will be able to submit HTML form. Okay, let's use same HTML attribute for other input fields. We'll skip gender because we're gonna set initial value for radio buttons. Also, we'll skip type of question. Okay, so let's save our changes. And let's refresh our web page. So now when we try to submit form, we need to enter some value in this field. Also, we need to fill out our surname field. We need to fill out our age field. We need to fill out our telephone field. And also we need to fill out our question field. Only if we fill out all fields, we will be able to submit our HTML form. So next thing that we can do. Currently for our age field, we are using number-like type of this simple field. So user can directly enter number of years. But let's change this. Instead of number type, let's set date type for this input field. So we'll create calendar here. So basically user can enter date like date of birth. So let's save our changes. So let's go back in our web browser. So basically now we have a calendar and user can choose date like date of birth. Also, we can set initial value for our calendar. Currently we don't have initial value, but let's go back in our text editor and we'll use value to set initial value for our calendar. So let's define that here. Like initial value, we can use any date, for example, 1980 and 1st January. Okay, so let's save our changes. Let's refresh our page. And here it is. I believe this is more intuitive for users because we'll know what we should enter in this field. Also, if you take a look, currently, like date of birth, you can choose even dates that are actually in the future. So date of birth in the future, I don't think so. So let's restrict this with max HTML attribute. And like maximum value, let's set any recent date. For example, something like 2020, maybe May, and May 13th. Okay, so let's save this. So let's refresh our page. Okay, so now let's try to choose year. If you scroll down, you will see that we are blocked on 2020. Also, we are blocked on May. And last day that you can choose is 13th May. Next thing, let's define initial value for our gender. So how we can do that? For our gender, we can set female like initial value with checked HTML attribute. So let's save this change. So now when we refresh our page, like initial value for our gender, female will be checked. Next thing that we can change for our form, currently inside of our tel field, we can enter any value that we want, for example, something like this. But we want from our users that they can enter something like format 3 digits, dash sign, 3 digits, dash sign, and 3 digits. So let's do that. For doing that, we will use pattern HTML attribute. So let's define it here. And valid pattern will be 3 values that need to be digits between 0 and 9, and dash sign. Once again, 3 digits between 0 to 9, dash sign, and once again, 3 values that are digits between 0 to 9. So let's save our changes. So when we refresh our page, let's fill out our mandatory fields first. Like telephone number, let's set something that doesn't follow our pattern. So now when we try to submit our form, we'll get validation error that we need to follow requested format. This is requested format. So when we try to submit this, we'll be able to submit our HTML form. For our telephone number, we can also use placeholder HTML attribute just to set what is valid format, so user will know what should be entered here. So now when we refresh our page, here it is. This is valid format that we can use. And of course, when you start typing, that value will be cleared. Next thing, for our type of question, let's set question about lesson like default value. So how we can do that? This is our drop down. So should we use checked HTML attribute on our second value here? So let's try that. So now when we refresh our page, well, question about course is still initial value. So why is that? Reason for this is that for select, we need to use, instead of checked, selected value. So let's try this. So now when we refresh our page, yep, our question about lesson is now initial value. So for radio buttons, we'll use checked HTML attribute, and for drop-down select list, we'll use selected HTML attribute. And last thing that we can do for our form, for our text area, let's define that user need to enter at least 3 characters. So let's use min-length HTML attribute with value 3. So now, when we refresh our page, first we need to enter all mandatory values. If we enter just 1 character, we'll get validation error that we need to enter at least 3 characters. So any value that contains at least or more 3 characters will be valid value, so we'll be able to submit our HTML form. Now, let's do one thing for our send button. Basically, send button will definitely take values from your form and send to some script for server-side data processing. But in our case, for our send button, let's define simple JavaScript function that will be called anytime when we click on our send button. So let's do that. First, we need to define onClick HTML attribute. Like value for our onClick HTML attribute, let's set question sent JavaScript function. Now we need to create this JavaScript function because it currently doesn't exist. So let's go here inside of our head, below our style block. Let's define script block with script start and script end tag. Now inside of this block, we're going to define our JavaScript function. So this is going to be name, so let's copy it. So first let's set that this is function, okay, and let's paste it our function here now. Let's define curly braces. Between curly braces, you can define anything that you want to execute, but we'll create simple alert function with text. Your question has been sent. Okay, basically, this is going to open for us alert pop-up window with this text. So let's save our changes and let's go back in our web browser. So when we refresh our page and let's press send, and here it is. Now we have our alert with text that we have set like text for our alert function. So basically text is, your question has been sent. Of course, as I said, with the send button or with the JavaScript function, you can set anything that you want to do when user press that send button. Next thing that we can do for our contact page, currently we don't have explicit text about our address. So let's define address text for our contact page. Okay, so let's go back in our text editor and let's do that. Below our div that surrounds our map and our question form, so this is the one, let's create one more div. Okay, inside of this div, first let's define simple B or bold text element with B start and B end tags. Like content for it, let's set our address is. Okay, now in a new line, let's define address HTML element. Okay, and like content for this element from our website, we'll copy address that we have. So this is the one. And let's paste this address inside of our address HTML element. So here it is. So let's save our changes. And let's go back in our web browser. When we refresh our page, now we have our address written in this page, but currently this text is black. I believe it's not visible enough, so let's change this. We'll set our text to be the same color as copyright text. So let's use class HTML attribute. And let's define our gray text. That is a class that we have in our styles file. This is the one. So let's copy it. And let's paste this class here. So now when we save our changes and refresh our web page, we have our address now in a gray color, and it's definitely more visible like this. Well, folks, believe it or not, we have finished our first HTML website. Our website has 4 pages. So basically, we have home page with image links for our about page that has text about our website. Also, we have our course page with the content of our course. And we have our contact page with our contact information and contact form. Also, we have navigation with navigation links for the same pages. We also have our links for our social media pages and this copyright link that allows us to send email to some direct email address. And here it is. Okay, so basically, we have completed our website step by step in less than 2 hours. Well, folks, this is all for this course. I hope it was helpful and it wasn't too hard or too boring for you. With the knowledge that you grasped from this course, now you're able to build your own websites, so if you didn't start from today. I hope that we will see you in our future courses, and until then, learn, build, and enjoy.